Ken McKusick, FilmStudyBaltimore.com. What's up, Ken?
Hey, Rob. Life's good.
Life is really good. Ken, we have not had a chance to ask you about the Ravens' new hire, Jesse Mentor.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. X's and O's guy for the defense, definitely calling defensive plays. 42 years old. As the teams in L.A. improved greatly from before he was there, when they were a really bad defense at 26th in DVOA. They improved to 9th and 10th the last two seasons. We know what he got. He got more out of Adafeowe. That's something I definitely want to look into as to how it occurred. Really good years at Michigan, including a national championship in 2023. So exciting. And I think maybe most importantly about all this, he's already coached 4 years in Baltimore from 2017 to 20. So some of the concerns I'd have about, how are they going to maintain the Ravens DNA, the Ravens way? They should be okay taking the good things from the Harbaugh era and not forgetting those, and also layering in what needs to be new.
Yeah. What about the whole 10,000-foot view of the coaching search here? I'm just curious what you think about. We talked about this last time you were in. By delaying, are you losing some good candidates? Do you think people are just snapping up jobs because they think they're not going to get the Ravens or Bills job? Well, definitely not getting the Ravens job now, but yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a prisoner's dilemma problem, I think, for some of the coaches who were probably not going to be hired by the Ravens, and then maybe some others who would have had a chance. But Kevin Stefanski jumped quickly on the Atlanta job, for example. I do think there's some of that going on. So anyway, the Ravens hopefully have their guy, and I think they still have the pick of some of the assistants as well as they move down the line, particularly guys who are moving from an OC role to an OC-AHC role. So an assistant head coach tacked on to their OC. I think the Ravens will have their pretty much the pick of the litter.
Hey, what about the special teams? Because Chris Horton went to the Giants, I believe. Do you feel comfortable with what they have here with Lavine or whoever else they put in place?
Yeah, I think they'll figure it out. Lavine is a guy they put a lock on. They told people they couldn't sign him for a lateral move. Now, that to me, that means they've got things in mind for him in the future. So I would assume he's going to jump up and be the special teams coordinator. He has a limited amount of coaching experience to this point exactly, but certainly a guy who legendary special teams player with the Ravens for many years. I think the important thing for the Ravens is going to be they've had a problem in the last few years having guys who are only special teams players, whereas for most of Ravens history, they've had special teams players who also play a specialist and then I'll back up a rotational role either on offense or defense. And talk about the great, special teams players of all time, such as Lavine himself, McClellan, McLean, Ellerby, Hummel, Wallace, and Walker now. Those guys all have a role on one side of the ball, and the 48-man roster just won't support a lot of guys who can play, or really even more than one maybe, who will just play special teams.
Even that Reed plays occasionally returning special teams.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Well, you saw what happened in the NFC Championship. Cat's fumbling, and so Kyron Williams goes back there just to catch it. Mm-hmm. Something he hadn't done in years.
Ken McKusick joins us, FilmStudyBaltimore.com. Ken, just curious, currently, are you wrapping a Snuggie or a traditional blanket?
Yeah.
OC candidate. Warm here.
OC candidates.
I just want to point out these guys have had Joe LaCroix sleeping in the studio for 4 straight nights or something, while they now make big jokes about coming in.
But we drove here.
I didn't miss a day at work though.
Yeah, I did.
Got here yesterday.
Yeah. We ain't calling in. Joe Brady, Cliff Kingsbury, Davis Webb. Where are we going with this OC job?
So I get lots of choices, and I think they pretty much will get their pick of who they want, given Lamar Jackson is here. The Bills also have a good draw with their situation, but maybe it is Joe Brady, maybe it's Kingsbury. Declan Doyle, the Bears OC, is a guy they looked at. The 3 guys who don't have play calling experience.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out.
There are people. Yeah, there are people who said that maybe this is not the perfect job for them, even though I think there's some great young talent there, Webb and Shielhaas and Montgomery.
Well, what about the other side of the ball, I guess? Have we settled on, all the defensive people that we'd like to see here? Coordinator, linebackers coach, secondary, because there's some good people on the Chargers team, including his father, obviously.
Yes. For the defensive side of the ball, they're probably going to get a person who's a second tier guy there, I would say, because it's not the same attractiveness of the job when you know you're coming in and working under Minter. Mm-hmm. Joe Cullen was kind of an interesting choice because he's former defensive line coach for the Ravens here. I don't know who else they've got in mind. Maybe there's another person for DC that will be a good DC himself in a couple of years. But they're kind of looking for a different level of talent, I think, on that. A quality control guy, something who adds something specific to the defense and takes a coordinator role maybe before it's time for him to have a coordinator role.
Cullen's kind of known for strong pass rush and stuff.
Yeah, I misheard him when I thought he said Joe Kahn. I said, if my dad's coming in to be the defensive coordinator, his defense is going to suck.
But he smiles like Rex Ryan.
Yes, he does. That's 100% true. Hey, Ken, as we start to look at this roster, I mean, one of the things we've talked about is possibly losing players to the Giants. What are your thoughts overall with some of the guys that they have to make decisions on? I know there's Ricard and a handful of others. Is there certain players that you absolutely say that they need to bring back, or are you kind of indifferent here?
Of the remaining players, I'm not sure that they have an easy chance on anybody. Ardarius Washington, I'd really like to see back in a Ravens uniform at the right price. Tyler Linderbaum, I'd like to see him in a Ravens uniform at the right price, but I think also the decision to sign him probably is going to have to wait until after they get the Lamar deal restructured. Not because they need the dollars, but because they need to know Lamar is here for long term in order to make the investment in a player like Linderbaum. So they can make the dollars work before then, but I really think if they're going to what amounts to overpay by Linderbaum for $2 or $3 million, then they're going to really want to make sure that Lamar is here to gain the value of that.
We talked about players returning, but one thing in position in particular that I'm very curious to hear you talk about is the tight end position, Ken McKusick, and we'll do that on the other side. We talk about the running back position and how important it is here in Baltimore, and it is. We talk about that because it absolutely is. But another position that has been important with the Ravens since the very beginning of this organization is the tight end position. They've had great tight ends in Baltimore. And it's not just because Ozzie was the GM, because after Ozzie, they still drafted and brought in great tight ends. It's just been a tradition. So as we sit here, we know that Mark Andrews got the extension. And Mark Andrews, even though he's very productive still, Ken McKusick, his better days, I believe, are behind him. He's probably flatlined right now. I don't think he's on his way down, but he's flatlined. He's peaked. Who's going to be at the tight end position with Mark Andrews in 2026?
Yeah, the big unknown. And the Ravens committed a kind of a problem we've seen coming. Like, it's a car wreck we've seen coming from a good distance. They had all four of their contracts, including the three tight ends and Patrick Ricard, coming due at the same time. So they knew there was a lot of risk involved. Last summer, we saw Isaiah Likely, one of the really good players in camp, reaching back and forward for the ball, displaying a big catch radius, and seemed to have even more chemistry with Lamar in terms of what was going on. They reportedly offered him a big contract, and then shortly after that he got hurt. I'm not sure whether that offer got pulled or Likely decided he didn't want it anyway, but regardless, he wasn't the one who ended up getting signed. Mark Andrews was. He finished the year with by far his worst season at 6 yards per target, which is way below his career average, despite playing in all 17 games. So he was coming off a 9.8 yard per target season, to give you an idea of the drop off between 1 year and the next. So the Ravens had remarkable success in 23 and 24. I can go into that more detail if you like, with 143.5 passer rating those 2 years, and that dropped off to 91.3 last year. It was the biggest hidden component of the offense that was really missing last year.
What about the curious one to me is not so much Andrews, but Likely. His targets went down dramatically, whereas his snaps went down. It seemed like he was just utilized way less, and we thought he'd be seeing more of him.
Yeah, he was active for fewer than the full number of games there, so that was part of the lost time there. But yeah, he had a 34% decrease in snaps, largely because of that, and his targets were cut in half. That is more than that. Yards per target were still okay. He made the big catch against Pittsburgh. But, yeah, it wasn't a good season for Isaiah. It's still possible he'll be back with the Ravens, potentially on the franchise tag. It's also possible they might tag him and then trade him, which will be a lot less return, but that may be the route they have to end up going.
Forgive me if this has been brought up, but Mike Mickens, have you learned anything about him, the guy that's coming over from Michigan as defensive pass game coordinator?
Okay, super exciting hire. Exciting hire. So he's already in his time at Notre Dame coached 3 guys who've been drafted in the top 3 rounds: Benjamin Morrison, Xavier Watson, Kyle Hamilton. This will be his first NFL job. He's been in college for his entire career. His dad, I think, was at Cincinnati, but he's been there for 2 separate stints, and all his work is with DBs. One way you can tell just how bad the situation is, go out to the Notre Dame boards and see how they are bemoaning the loss of him. It's a tragic loss. It's an awful loss. And he didn't play an NFL game ever. He was drafted in the 7th round himself in 2009, but outstanding coach who really built one of the nation's best secondaries this last year at Notre Dame.
Notre Dame boards and the Chargers boards with Mentor are both moaning about those 2 guys joining the Ravens as Ken McKusick joins us from FilmStudyBaltimore.com. Speaking of Jesse Mentor, how much did the Las Vegas Raiders play a role in the timing of the Ravens hiring Jesse Mentor?
Yeah, it sounds like they did. I mean, it sounded like the Ravens were talking about how, working the process, going through all the way to the end. And then the Raiders showed interest in Mentor after he had interviewed with the Ravens as well. And I think the Ravens fast played their hand at that point and decided, okay, we're just going to go ahead with Mentor. We're not going to risk losing him. We like him enough. And I think it did. I think it did play a role.
Hypothetically speaking, do you think if the Raiders were not involved, that maybe Mentor isn't the guy they hire? If they play this out a little bit longer,
I think the chance is still pretty high they would have hired him. I think that they now said no to some interviews that they may have had lined up for the 2nd round. Not as bad as what's going on in Cleveland, but they had that happen.
So now that we have, let's see, Bengals coach, Steelers have McCarthy, we have Mentor.
Mm-hmm.
The Browns are still looking.
They're still looking, and no. So who has the best coach in the AFC North right now? Is it going to be McCarthy just by default?
Probably the Ravens.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I think it's probably the Ravens. So Mike McCarthy obviously has a lot of experience. They have that. Zach Taylor is around. That's a very dysfunctional organization. Not that he's a terrible coach. It's just a very dysfunctional organization. And in some ways, they're not getting rid of him because they don't want to pay him. And maybe they feel like there won't be a lot of offset value they get back out of it because no one else is likely to take him either. But the Browns situation is the most hilariously dysfunctional of all. They've imposed some testing. If you haven't heard this, they're
essays.
making these multi-part essays and take a personality test. That's the other one.
Hey, what about the coaches that are on the plane and ask for a transfer? Like on a bus,
Yeah.
I'm not coming there.
I got a refund on my flight, yeah.
Hey, Ken, I mean, are you at least a bit concerned that every team in this division, if Aaron Rodgers signs back with the Steelers, has a Pro Bowl quarterback?
Still saying this.
I'll move along. Hey, I know you have a pod coming up with Femi. How's that going?
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Femi was on to talk about the Mentor hire and the Ravens maintaining their DNA, what that would be. But boy, Femi is great, and that'll if you're not used to people talking fast, the two of us going back and forth is mind numbing.
And Femi's got a quick mind. He's a very
he's
smart
so
guy.
passionate about the Ravens. Yeah. Like it's weird to see. I don't want to say weird, but like
it is weird. His passion is almost fandom.
He loves the Ravens.
Yeah, it's not just a former player.
Yeah, Femi's great.
He is. I love Femi. All right, what did we learn in the past week about the Baltimore Ravens? Ken McKusick.
Well, I'm excited about the Mentor Harbaugh, but in large part because of what I think he'll keep about the good processes that were already here. I was a little worried about some of that being lost. They may have fast played the hand against the Ravens versus the Raiders, and other teams in the AFC North are having even more difficulty with their coaching searches or coaching situations. I think the Ravens in relative shape are in a pretty good position.
Tell us all about Film Study Baltimore.
Sure. I'm at Film Study Ravens on Twitter, pod with Femi Ayanbadejo we just talked about, and please make use of hashtag Film Study Mailbag if you have questions for the show, and I'll put them on the appropriate place.
All right, drive safely getting home.
You know what, Ken? Don't take this from him.
That's
You guys.
so right.
Take it easy, man.